will go by faster than you know it. I did have a live radio hit this morning. That was 20 minutes and. What part of the city do you live in?
It's really, really big. They have like when you walk in, there's like Einstein tables and stuff like that. Yeah, that's right. That's a very nice to hang out. I think about that every once in a while. Oh, okay.
It's going to be my new phone. So it's basically
yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was my brother had so when he went to go visit them for like family weekend or whatever, he got it just lost and it had like a little rubber balloon with water on it, and he got that for me.
so whenever I have a chance to
when I come home yesterday, it was yesterday. It's predictable.
We know no, we're waiting for them. They'll give me a cue. Everything you've been saying has been going out to a live national audience.
It's been too long.
Now they are so. Every show is structured.
I'm the same way. I'm like, no, but that is.
I can try to introduce you, but thank you everybody for coming out here tonight. We appreciate you being here. I think you all know who I am, but I'm Nick Hirschon, the advisor of our SBJ chapter here at William Paterson University. And at 8:30, we'll be giving more of a presentation about what we do here, and then we're going to have Darla Miles from ABC, who is now touring our TV studio, so she'll be in here to talk to all of the students about the honor that they've gotten. But for now, we have two distinguished journalists right up on the dais. We have, to my far right, Ken Burns, who is the president of the New Jersey Chapter Society of Professional Journalists and also a news anchor at WHYY Radio. And then to my close right, we have Cesar Bustamante, who is the president of the Deadline Club, which is the New York City chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists. So the two of them are going to be here to talk to you tonight a little bit about SBJ, what it is, what it does, what it can do for you as young journalists, or even if you're a journalist who's been around the block for a while, some of the advantages that it has and the relationships that's built for them. So thank thank you both and take it away.
All right, thank you, Nick. She
Thank
gets a
you.
tour of the TV studio.
You can go.
By the way, folks, I know I have the tie on, but I'm not that formal. I even got rid of the mic stand. So, so SPJ.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. A Society of Professional Journalists is a society of professional journalists. It's actually quite as simple as that in some respects. It is a way of building community within our industry that helps towards events in which you can meet one journalist in one part of their life and next, hopefully developing relationships that will continue to build on your future in the industry, as well as giving webinars and panels that will improve your knowledge and what you can do in it. It's we've done things from FOIA events, at least the Deadline Club, to book proposals. So it's a investment in your career, in my opinion. I took over that, and I should not do so. Ken, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, absolutely. We also stand up for journalists, nationally and internationally. In fact, shout out to Bob Shapiro, who is my predecessor, in an effort to help journalists in Ukraine cover that conflict. On a local level, we are among the many trying to keep the State Open Records Act the way it is. And we have an event later this month down at Rider University. We're also standing up for Jersey City Times, as that mayor has froze them out. And we're trying to get an event happening in Jersey City, so stay tuned for that. Details still being worked out. And also, we also try to push for change in the industry, diversity for all, which is why I'm thrilled to be here at William Paterson. And like Caesar says, it's the networking. Like, I have friends that I met. I joined in Maryland when I was in my 16-year undergrad program. Yeah, I'm one of the many who got the career started before he got his degree. It happens. So I joined my first year at Towson University. I've been a member ever since. And at one point, I was actually a vice president for the Maryland Pro chapter for a year. So that was fun. So when did you join?
5 years ago. It was a little after my layoff at the Daily News. Apparently, every journalist has to go through that at some point. The laughter of the crowd, you know how it goes. But it was a moment of. So I went to a college. I did the newspaper there. I did all the geeky things that you're supposed to do as a journalist, except join the extended organizations. But one part of it is we didn't have a chapter in my college, which is Queens College at the time. And so I didn't know that there were these networks that you should kind of approach. And in the same way, I was kind of insular in my community. And that if I could go back in time, I would change that in a heartbeat, because in essence, I was kind of withholding myself from communities that were kind of looking for me, and I was looking for them. Like when I got laid off at the Daily News, I joined SPJ. I also got Deadline Club. I joined AJA because I finally felt like, I have the time for this. Also, I know that this is going to be an investment in my career, and in both cases, it turned out the same way. Like right now, I'm also a member of IRE. Like these are communities that exist to support you as a journalist, and it felt foolish for me not to have done it earlier. But then again, I was overwhelmed in some respects. As a college student, I understand that I mean, you're probably trying to do X and Y while also graduating, but if you can touch base with another networking organization, it's to your advantage because this is an industry in which it is in part who you know, what you know, and what they're saying about you. And to start talking to individuals there will give you a leg up. And, you know, I mean, I told you cover letters are the vein of my existence.
Right.
And you have to do more than just write a good resume and a cover letter to get the interview sometimes.
I think you bring up a important lesson that I tell every student, and you'll see it in the Instagram videos at some point. Network, network, network. Oh. Let's try this again. Network, network, network. And this is where I failed. I was a member of these organizations, SPJ, NABJ, but I didn't network. And that's where I fell short. So you were laid off from the Daily News. I was actually fired in Baltimore
Ooh.
for professional shenanigans that politics did not like. Office politics and literal politics. I was actually banned from a news conference in Baltimore that the mayor held where I could have asked any question I want. Reason she gave? I was physically and verbally threatening to her and her staff. Do I look like I could harm a fly? Thankfully, I worked with enough people, and that gets into another professional lesson. Call people, meet up with them in person. Because when I was working for a station in Annapolis, Maryland, the managers believed that I could cover everything from the station. I didn't have to leave. I left anyway. I shook hands with people. I'm good at networking for a story, but not my professional life. So don't do what I do. Network, network, network. But looking back at that, if I had built that network, I probably could have weathered that storm a little bit better than I did. I'm thankful for the position where I'm at now at WHYY, but I probably could have been a full-time journalist during my time on the beach, as they would say.
The networking is a very important part of the industry. It is. I mean, the jobs I would get, the work I would get when I was trying to get to make a freelance career work was, former classmates, got individuals in the industry who just kind of called me up even when I didn't ask for it. Like, that happens. It's such a big part of keeping you alive in this world, because and then also in a way, I think there's this kind of mythology of journalists being or just writers in general being alone in the cafe writing and typing away, but
depends on my mood.
Okay. but you need that support network to kind of to get through and also be a better journalist. Individuals who look at your copy before you even send it out, or and in terms of your application, people who look at your cover letter or resume before you send it out. You need those second or third eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important lesson. Actually, let's go through lessons in life.
Yes.
So
we got the one,
yeah.
network. Number 2, be prepared for corporate shenanigans, whether it's a layoff or management that doesn't like you anymore. And the other thing I would say is, if you're at least a freshman or a sophomore, start planning for your internships in your junior and senior year, because by the time you graduate, and I am not knocking campus media. It's great that you participate with the campus TV station, campus radio station, campus newspaper, but managers want to see some real world experience that you've left the campus bubble, if you will. Even if it's the local network affiliate or the newspaper, if you have one or two of those and you make the most of those internships, that goes a long way.
I agree. I do kind of, again, looking back at my college career, I interned after graduating from college, and I would have preferred having a little bit more on the ground experience beforehand, but I was stuck in my bubble at that moment. I will say also, though, because you guys are in colleges right now, the opportunities you have to do certain stories are amazing. It's actually quite impressive looking back at my time at Queens College, because I got to interview a former African slave who was doing their rounds in my college, because they were promoting their story. And so perhaps there are opportunities for you to tell a story in the college that you wouldn't have in outside, because they have other priorities than in there. So take advantage of both situations, but try not to leave out one over the other, because it's to your benefit. It's kind of impressive.
Did you have a clue of what you wanted to do when you were 22?
No, never mind. That's not accurate. I mean, I did know that I want to go into journalism, but journalism at that time, and still right now, is kind of like changing and immensely at that moment. So what I understood the trajectory of journalism to be isn't necessarily the trajectory it is now as a career role. Like, when I was going to grad school for journalism, that trajectory, I was already learning from my professors. Like, in their time, they aspired to be their predecessors, and their predecessors like, oh, I'm going to be an editor-in-chief, and then I'm going to publish my next round of careers as a book published journalist. That's not necessarily a viable world as it used to be. So now it's a world where I guess the career trajectory is changing, and you have to kind of accept that what perhaps you've learned, if you've learned a career trajectory from former journalists and you're planning it under that path, it's probably already changed, and that could present some possibilities for you. I went to the Daily News not expecting I would be doing social media.
That's a good point. In fact, let me take you back to 1999. I was a spry 18-year-old once. No, I'm not going there. But I did start my professional career in 1999, and the internet was still fairly new. Radio, you still had AM, FM, and TV, and then newspapers. At that point, they were just giving their stuff away for free on the internet. They've learned their lesson 6 or 7 years later. Fine, whatever. But my point is, going back that far, is I remember when the internet became a thing, the station that I worked for at the time, WTOP, they decided to start investing in their digital news operation. It was slightly ahead of its time. Like, they gave reporters digital cameras so they could shoot pictures for their stories. The actual web copy would be tweaked from their radio scripts. It's not what you see now. Far from it. Now, I have to put in photo requests if I'm doing a web story, and if one of the photographers is unavailable, I shoot my own photos, either with a real camera on my iPhone. Most of the time, it's the iPhone, because I think it takes better pictures than my actual digital camera. And I'm writing deep, long text copy, sometimes 600 to 1,200 words. Most of it because you can only fit but so much in an audio piece, whether it's a quick 1-minute rap or a 3 or 4 minute feature story. So, all that to say, and then social media. We have Twitter, we have Blue Sky, we have Threads. There's one for that was created by journalists for journalists called Fourth that I'm on. There's Instagram. There's Facebook. And then you have to interact with these communities across this, well, not the entire state, thank God. I cover a huge area. I basically cover Mercer County and then all of South Jersey. That's a lot. That's at least 225 communities and even more school districts. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, it's fun. But I'm from a state where there's only 24 school districts. And my state has 23 counties and an independent city. But the world has changed since the late 90s when I started my career. So, and then you would agree with this. We're not immune from economic pressures.
Yes. That is absolutely true. It's a very much it's changing industry and it's something that everyone needs to kind of get comfortable with. And also, but I will say this in terms of some of the doom and gloom thing that ended like reporting as I mean, everyone who's gotten laid off has had that feeling about that industry. But in some respects, I kind of have a degree of optimism in it, just because, when talking AI, at least you're talking about AI. I remember when social media was starting to be a thing, no one really kind of talked about it. They just knew they had to do something.
They thought it was a toy.
Yeah, and then, but that it was an important part of the industry. And now, like, yes, there is some doom and gloom, and they're talking about AI, but at least they're actually kind of considering how to utilize it or how not to utilize it, and there's an important, I think, change in the dynamic in which journalism was kind of very much complacent in a lot of the tech changes in the world. So but in the heart of it, all of this, if you are a journalist, in every single aspect of it, storytelling is always important. News judgment is always important. Ethics stands firm. If your viewers aren't trusting you, there's no journalism there. So a lot of the things that are the fundamentals that you learn in school and on the job stay through in whatever part of the industry you're in. But you are changing by necessity to kind of evolve with where the hopefully how the industry responds to the needs of the community, which is the first and foremost important part of what we do. You need those school boards to be covered. You need those local sports stories to be told. It's kind of if no one's doing it, how do you know? And really, there's a hunger for it from the community. It's just a frustration in which the annoying growing pains of organizations learning how to actually reach the community properly, but also make money from it.
Right. I too share Caesar's optimism, but I'm going to glean off of one of those points. Part of the reason why I'm bullish on journalism is because there's definitely a future, and a lot of that has to do with, and it's quite clear if you've been paying attention to business news over the last couple of years, nobody knows what the economy is doing. One day we're talking about jobs, a company laying off 100, 200 workers. The next thing you know, the economy has added 5,000 jobs in the month of March. The economy is in flux for sure, but I don't think we have a handle on it because we're still economically recovering from COVID, and Governor Murphy has said this a lot. Also, there's still a reckoning in journalism, especially on how to properly cover communities, especially those communities that have been historically been marginalized and miscovered. And how all this will lay out, I have no idea, but there's a lot to talk about. And AI is really the next phase in computer assistant reporting. Computer assistant reporting has been around for a long time. It's just more accessible now because the technology has gotten cheaper. I mean, you could literally use Google Sheets. You don't have to get Excel, which is $70 a year. And that's if you get the entire Microsoft suite. But it's just more accessible now. And on top of that, journalism is still a people business. A computer's not going to go to those school board meetings. A computer's not going to go to the community to get someone's story. A computer, it'll analyze data and it'll spit some words out, but someone has to edit the AI computer. Just probably even more so than the human in some ways. So the jobs are there. We just need people who understand how media works to be in the right places. And that's where some of you come in. You are the future, especially if you have not graduated from William Paterson or Towson, assuming that there's somebody in Maryland watching the stream right now. No, you guys are the future, and I get energized when I see what the future looks like, because we'll be able to cover communities better from a smarter perspective and with dignity and respect.
You're here. That's fantastic. And to echo, to add to that, in terms of you are the future, sometimes you will be the person who will be bringing these new ideas into the newsroom. I mean, again, it was very bizarre to go to a newsroom at some point. It's like, you do not have a social media team. How are you at? And in some ways, you're the one who's going to be bringing something like that, or you're covering this community that's a significant part of the portion of the actual community you're in. But for some reason, you don't have a reporter. It's a thing, is what I'm saying. So you're not only going to be there doing what they tell you. You're going to be there advocating for what you feel needs to be done, and that's also one of the reasons why it helps to have a support system.
Yes,
because you're to kind of help with maybe structuring your pitch to your editor, or getting someone to talk to about some ideas you have, and like massage them into something viable for whatever newsroom you end up working in, because it helps not thinking that you just have this harebrained idea that you aren't actually that's just all, like, only sounds good to you, but it'll be nice to actually have someone else be like, no, you need to think about this or that. I was like, no, that's great. Go and bring that up to your editor. Community will help with that.
Yeah, you're not alone. And although there will be times, actually, I'll bring it home.
Okay.
That station in Baltimore. I was one of. Check that. I was the only black person on staff in the newsroom. One of two, maybe three in the entire building. One was a producer, and the other one worked the front desk. But as far as the news staff, I was the only black guy, only black person on the news staff, with one freelancer, and they were actually going to cut him until they said, well, if you bring us a sponsor, you can stay on the air. He got a sponsor, but there will be moments like that. In fact, Utah in the last decade, I don't know where I know she left for Seattle at some point, but she was the first black anchor in Salt Lake City. It was for the ABC station. So, especially if you're of color, and especially if you're going to communities that are not used to seeing people of color in news reporting positions, you may be the first, but you're not alone in that you're the first. There are me, but there are others that have been in that situation, which is why, again, networking is important. Build that support network. That way, when you have to talk through these issues, like don't do what I did. don't be bullheaded. Don't go in guns blazing and you have to be smart about it. I'm still learning that lesson, but I'm much better.
I don't know if we have any time, but I think that would make sense if we did to check if there's any questions from the crowd.
Yeah.
I don't know who's to ask if we have time.
Well, we started at around 7:45, and until Nick comes in here and says wrap it up,
Okay.
I say we give it about go another 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Anyone have questions?
In the back.
Hi, I'm really curious because this is for you in particular, kind of nerds. But for me, my interest is in radio. And I'm starting out, but one of my challenges that I'm still learning is finding my radio voice or my identity, especially in the midst of someone that's like a female and Hispanic trying to find my way into the industry as well. I always think of what is the right way to be able to identify yourself and show what you're capable of in the midst of what people may think about you because like, you're a female in the news industry. So what is like your response based on your personal experiences when you started out in the radio industry for developing a radio voice?
That is a good question, especially since there's not that many people of color in news radio, let alone public radio. The best... Now, New York and Philadelphia are anomalies in that there are people of color on news radio. I'm thinking of Justin Udo and Denise Nakano at across the street at KYW. My shop alone, the melanin's popping. I'm just being serious. New York, Larry Mullins is on Wednesdays. He's the afternoon anchor. What's her name? I'm blanking on her. She's on Wednesdays too. So there's people you could look to as far as radio. Oh, I know he's a guy, but Mario Bosquez, he's on Wednesdays as well. But the main thing as far as finding your voice is writing is your voice at the end of the day. Write it the way that you would explain it to the person you would share the news the most. You still have to do the who, what, where, why, and how, but you have to be confident. You have to have confidence in how you deliver that story. That's the big part of it, and it took me some years. I mean, I was told, well, I heard their hand from one of my old supervisors that his boss said, Kenny Burns does not have a future in radio. Yeah, he said that, and I'm gladly proving them wrong. So, take your time with it, but it's going to come faster than you know it. Oh, and finding people to support you, again, build that network to tell you, don't do that, do this.
Anyone else have any questions?
I saw his hand first.
Yeah, just going back to what you said right at the end, like how do you get through that? Because that's a confidence killer or boosts you up, you know. I mean, I presume you took it the latest, but how do you manage that? It really could throw you off, especially if you're just starting out.
So this is where I take back part of what I said about not being bullheaded. In that instance, you have to be bullheaded. I had a faith that I knew this is what I was going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to be persuaded or dissuaded from doing it. And I was going to find my audience somewhere. And then persistence is key. I mean, even at that station, they hired me full-time at some point. And then that led to the job, and it actually led to a part-time job with a bigger station on the weekends. And that led to my entry in public radio. But you're going to have some, channel your bullheadedness as far as keeping up that confidence and not being dissuaded, and make sure you have a support network around you. Like, I remember the first person I reached out to 14 years ago. He's still my mentor to this day. Someone that will be honest with you and give you sage advice on how to be better.
The network thing is particularly, I mean, I keep on saying that often, and will always say that when I got laid off from the Daily News. I mean, people from like my circle out of woodworks just came out and just were there to support me in that moment, and, you know, offered to help me out in one way or another. But another thing is actually, this is a very tough industry, and I would recommend something that I should have done early on, which is, and sounds very weird, but a brag book. It's kind of a book in which you record any compliment given to you across the board in the industry, but also numbers, and you know, any time that you excelled in some fashion. One, it's useful for when you have to talk to your boss about, hey, can I get a raise? Here is a record of like what things I've succeeded at, because you in the industry, I swear to God, it's always the next deadline. You never take a pause to actually kind of acknowledge your accomplishments, and you need to do that because you need to start being able to sell yourself in this industry, being able to tell your story of what I've achieved and what I can achieve for you if you're moving to another another station or another part even within this another outlet, or even within the station, about moving into a different department, because I think there's a big part of us which is always being self-critical about like how we can do things better, but never really acknowledge how well we've actually done anything. And you need to be able to like tell your bosses about that, for that raise, for that next move. So I don't know, take a weekend or like a quarter, like make it a quarterly tradition, and like, this is what I've achieved this time. What's my next step?
Yeah.
I was curious.
Hold on, let me get Omega real quick.
As a junior in college, someone who's currently still building her resume, I know that they look for specific things for students to have looking for an internship. What, in your experience, do you know while working in the radio or being with other journalists, what exactly do you know that they are looking for if you don't have that much experience yet?
That's a good question. Now, this part I don't really have a good answer for you, because one of the anomalies of my career path, I was an intern for a month. And it was straight out of high school. They normally hire juniors and seniors to be interns, but the station manager made an exception in my case because I was writing about radio on the internet. Again, we're talking about the late 90s, and the internet was kind of a novelty back then. Very much a novelty. So after a month of interning, they just hired me freelance because I had taken to the technical aspects of recording news feeds and editing audio. And thank goodness computer editing with audio came out around that time. I guess the general advice I would say is just show your best. Like the one where people came to you and said, "Oh, Megan, that was a really good story," or "That was a really good video," and explain why it was so good, and and if it had community impact or any type of impact, sell it. And practice now, because you're going to do that if you have to find a new job.
I was gonna ask you guys to share some of the sacrifices that you had to make to stay in this industry, because I think it's instructive to let these college students know this job doesn't come with stock options. It's not finance. I think when I started out, I was making $23,000. You have to sacrifice if you want to stay in this industry. Could you share some of the sacrifices you made early on in your careers to stay in this industry and be where you are now?
That's a good question. You need some time?
I mean, it sounds like a sacrifice, but it is a kind of an advantage that I have. My parents live in New York. It meant that I could live in my parents' place, and it took me a while to actually like live for a short while, outside my parents' place and in Jersey City but ultimately it's, I didn't have to pay the extraordinary amount of rent that is New York. At the same time, it is also kind of, I mean, I'm Filipino. It's like there's not really the pressure within my community to leave the nest. If anything, they were very happy to have me around. So it was an advantage that I had, but at the same time, during my 20s, I had friends moving out and like living their best life with roommates. Though in retrospect, I kind of like, I'm happy to have had that time at my parents' place, but also they're living their best life wasn't exactly their best life sometimes. So it was a sacrifice, but at the same time, it was something that I kind of learned to value, and still do actually. At this moment, I am back at home, but that's partly because my parents are retired and they kind of need my help.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I said to someone earlier, you'll make money at some point. You just won't get rich. Before I even got to that point, I was basically expecting overdraft notices in my bank account at some point. But also humble pie. When I started my career, it was part-time. And I had a job at one point selling computers, returning to the job that I did in high school part-time, only on a full-time capacity. So you might have to work you might have to work a MIC job, McDonald's. And then when I lost the computer job, I figured, well, it's been a couple of years. Maybe I could parlay this into a full-time gig in broadcasting. Nope. I wound up getting a job at Walmart. It wasn't my first choice. It wasn't my last choice. It wasn't a choice. But I needed a job. And I'm thankful that I had the experience of working with Walmart. One, it humbled me a lot because you get to see people on a regular basis. And you get to hear the stories of the people at a retail store that you normally don't hear. Like, we're talking parents, we're talking grandparents, we're talking people like me that are trying to get to the next level. And the particular store I worked for, it was not an easy store because we got everyone from DC and everyone from Baltimore. It was right between those two cities. So that was one sacrifice. Well, it was a happy sacrifice. I sacrificed my pride. But at the same time, you want that full time. There are people that would love to make a living wage, but sometimes that doesn't happen. I remember sitting on one panel at Salisbury University, and the reporter for the local ABC station there, she heard me answer a question about why aren't there black people in why aren't they staying in journalism? And I said, well, it's hard to take crap for $30,000 a year. Mm-hmm. She came to me afterwards and said, yeah, you need to reduce that amount by like $3,000. So again, you will make money at some point. Most of the time, for most people, it won't be right away. There's only one guy. There's a few that do right away. I'm thinking of one guy. He's on CNN now, Omar Jimenez. He went from Medill to Baltimore. Doesn't happen often. It happens, but not very often. Not that high of a market. But he was a star, and he had the right mindset. So, and he was able to explain second-degree depraved heart murder in 5 seconds or less. That's a specific charge in Maryland. I will just Google it. but you're going to sacrifice economically, and sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice your pride if you want something. But you'll be the better for it by accepting that you actually have to work for where you want to be. Bob.
The flip side of Isaac's question. What makes you feel great in journalism? When things go right, what is it? What gives you your energy that you put up with all the crap? Because certain parts of being a journalist are just what you want to do.
That's a good question. In fact, I was thinking about this the other day. When I hear from people, particularly the ones whose story I tell, saying, "You did a great job. Thank you for giving us the platform." Because people are trusting you with telling their story to complete strangers. And one story in particular sticks out to me. The Lenny Lenape people in South Jersey. They just reclaimed their ancestral land, not just for the Lenny Lenape people. We're talking like blood. Like their family lived on this land forever, and for a lot of years, other people owned it. But then the person who runs the nonprofit that technically owns the land, she came across this property and was able to reclaim it as open space. And she wants to open a cultural center there. Like, there's a building on the property that used to be a church. And I told the story, talked to her dad. Her dad's a hoot, by the way. I enjoyed talking to him. And she said, "Your artistry and your talent has shown. Thank you for telling my story." I mean, the awards are nice. The accolades from my bosses are nice. They'd be nicer if they gave me a rise as well. But the highest compliment I could get from anybody is when I hear from the person I interviewed saying, "You did a good job telling my story."
That's fantastic. I really can't top that in any way.
Oh, you don't have to top it.
No,
I mean,
no.
What is it for you, though? Because it's different for each person.
Well, the truth about it is kind of like journalism gives you access and to individuals that you never had opportunities before, and gets you kind of an understanding about the community that you're in, even when you're in that community. So, I'm Filipino. I got to interview a bunch of Filipinos who are organizing one event or another that I would never have had the opportunity to talk to and otherwise. And I was in Queens. I would talk to, like, when I was an intern at Queens Courier, I would talk to, political politicians, and I would, you just, the access that you get, but also the perspectives that as a civilian you never really do.
That's cool.
It's something that I wouldn't kind of give that was worth a lot of those sacrifices, because I think you come into this industry with just inherent curiosity, and this is like that job that offers you the ability to actually answer some of those questions. Because a lot of people, I took that. All right, we're going back to the sacrifices. Everyone as far as I know, has taken that small stint, who's been in journalists, of like being outside of journalists and then coming back to it. And when you're outside of it, the stories, the things that actually matter to you, you realize don't matter to other people.
Right.
It becomes like, you become that weirdo who's just kind of like, yeah, this is a story. It's like, well, what is this? And you're just, inherently inquisitive and you get the opportunity to actually like like talk to people and get them to tell you things. It is not many like jobs do that.
Right.
I will say this actually with in respects to his story and like how amazing that is. I think everyone in who's had a career in journalism has those like stories that they just kind of enjoy and love. For Christ's sakes, just save them and back them up, because I have had like my career in like as a freelancer. I found stories that I thought were just going to be online forever. Mm-hmm. Suddenly it gets dislodged because they changed their CMS. Or so as
oh yeah,
I like this is going back to kind of like the practical thing about mistakes that you've made along the ways. Mine was like, oh, it's gonna be there. The Daily News is a trusted publication. They'll stay for a while, and it's amazing that it stayed. But suddenly they changed their CMS, and now your byline disappears, and or like your formatting disappears. So. As when you get those stories that you love dearly, save them in some fashion in the backup, because suddenly you're that story that I'm proud of got a radio jockey who got to interview J.R. Tolkien in the heyday is gone, and I'm like, why? You cannot trust the publications to save and archive your stories. You have to do it yourselves for, if nothing else, just for your posterity.
USB drives are cheap. Paterson has a micro center. Go there.
But yeah, that's the excitement for me. It's like people open their doors, and it's amazing how many stories they have to offer for you.
One quick story. A couple of years ago, if you're on a beat, you have things that are always they're going to happen. Elections, shore season. And 2 years ago, I was speaking with the public information officer for Cape May County, aka the very bottom of the state of New Jersey. And I was just trying to figure out what the lay of the land is for the summer. And she casually mentions, oh, the Canadians are returning. I'm like, huh? Yeah, we used to have a tourism office in Montreal for a lot of years, and ever since the 60s, people from Quebec will do their summer vacation in Cape May County. So one day I was in Cape May County. I was covering something else, and then I decided to go to the beach to try to get some Fox Pop or people interviews. Oh, it was an economic story. People still decided to go on vacation closer to home. So I tried to find some families to talk to. And the very first family I spoke to was from Canada. I said, I could do 2 stories in one trip. Yes! Very nice people. I spoke to a couple of families from Quebec, from province, and hopefully I will bump into them later this year when I go on vacation. We're going to do the road trip to Quebec, my wife and I.
Nice.
But that was fun.
Right.
All right.
I think are we
Nick, I saw you sneak back there.
Oh, I guess Nick, are we
Oh, there. Oh, you snuck out the back door. All right. Did we go over? Are we?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah,
oh.
so we're wrapped up. So
okay.
Well, so thank you very much, Cesar and Ken, for all your time tonight. Thank you for coming here. And yeah, we'll move on to the next portion program. But thank you very much. We appreciate all your advice. Yeah. So just give us a minute here to readjust, and then we'll get on with our main program. Okay. And if this is maybe a good time, if you want, I don't know if anyone needs restroom or food outside, and then we'll get going here again.
The mac and cheese bites are
Always take the free food.
absolutely.
But then come back here if you are, in a minute, because we'll get started. Yeah.
still food out there?
Yes, tons.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's the same thing, my whole creative prompt is like a half hour long presentation. It's pretty
Nice talk. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, no, okay. No, this is nice.
Yeah, sure.
We have this exactly.
Do you want a vertical or horizontal?
Both. But
It would be nice, like torso up.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you want me to position myself there, or am I going to walk down?
You're gonna walk there because first it's me speaking and then some of the students,
Okay.
and then we'll be. But yeah, but if you want to like get ready,
I'll come closer. Chris.
You're gonna ask everyone.
yeah, and if everyone wants to like move down, because yeah, that might be better for all of us. Okay, sure. Wherever, I mean, yeah. I'm just like super, wherever you feel comfortable. Don't feel like that.
How are you? Good. How are you?
Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. I was looking at the page for the chapter, and I saw your comments from when I was on the division, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Happy to see all the wonderful things you're accomplishing.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not really that close. Let me take one with my camera.
Yeah.
I don't like looking like I'm towering. I like being tall. I know how it feels. So what room is this? Is this just?
This is a martini room. It's like for.
Well, we're the martini. I have to talk to Nick about that. Nick was supposed to take a picture with us. Am I going to be sitting over there? Yes. I want to take a couple of
Yeah.
Where's the Nick? Oh, my stomach.
Sorry?
What do you guys shoot your
Oh,
video?
okay, sure.
Thank you.
I'm just stretching my
Like
leg.
if you guys are doing it
Oh,
in
yeah.
store, or is it just, do you guys go out and actually do reports, or do you do mostly in the
Yeah,
store?
actually they came, like, it was when it was 7 o'clock.
It really, I guess, depends on
No, I was
your major.
There was.
I mean, do you have cameras that they loan out, or do you
Yeah.
use like an iPhone?
Yeah, we have the technical services window where students can rent out camera equipment.
Okay.
And a lot of what the broadcast journalism students learn when it comes to going out and shooting packages is through the phone, just because it's like so much easier.
Are you a broadcast journalism student?
I'm media production, but my minor is journalism, and I've taken a lot of broadcast journalism classes.
Well, someone's gonna be shooting a VO while I'm down here, so we'll just have to find out who it is, because that way they wanna put it on Channel 7. I think it'll flip faster than the YouTube. So, it might be you, if Nicholas hasn't happened. Volunteer either way. We'll see your VO shooting skills. Wide, medium, tight. What's your name?
Isabel, Irritary. Nice to meet you. I'm actually, I'm currently an intern at NBC, the network desk.
Oh, that's amazing. Good for you.
Thank you.
30 Rock?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I was, SPJ took a tour of WABC 7 in New York.
I saw that.
Actually, like the day of the earthquake.
Oh my gosh, you had a good earthquake day?
Yeah.
That was a great day to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Did they talk about that at WBC 7 when it happened?
Yeah, you could see like everyone kind
It
of
was,
working on stuff. And they were live for a lot of it.
yeah, we went, it was like, it was the continuous coverage.
Yeah, because I think I was at home when it happened, and me and my grandma were watching El Mundo. And
Yeah.
that's where they went, and we were like, well, we're going to go to this segment talking about what just happened in the studio.
Yeah,
Just experienced an earthquake, and you just see it in their actual, like, actions. So it's interesting when that happened. How they
Hi. Part of NBC are you interning?
I'm at their network desk in news, and so it's like the national desk. Yeah, doing a lot of research.
I worked
Following
at
stories.
ABC. I was an intern.
We should have went.
I know.
So much fun. We got the seats were like nosebleeds, but the breakfast was really solid. So like,
Yeah, following like
I got
a
to
national
we got to
level,
one of the prayer
which is
rooms,
kind of crazy.
and then Dr. Herschel went to the practice room. He's like, "Do you work on a show?" And I'm like, "All right, here you go." He's like, "No, it's for you, man."
That's dope. That's WGA position.
You should have gone.
So
That'd be two.
I worked 6
And I
a.m.
went basketball week, which I was going to go to by class.
and I would want to stay for the show at 6 o'clock.
But yeah, the Devils game was amazing.
Let me.
I know you like it too, right?
That was union.
I don't even usually like hockey.
And someone like turned me on and told me to do something.
I did, yeah.
And that breaks into
Yeah.
a little hot. So I had to leave. You know, like, I couldn't stay.
Were you going to the Yes Network one? They had it now. Am I? Yeah, I am. I'm in
Better
it. No, I'm going to
Yeah.
26 too.
I'm not going. I got to take like after May 2nd. It's basically finally over for me.
David delivered the piece. Why on fire? All right, his name is on the newscast. But they show him looking at the damage, and they animate his signature. David, your signature is down. A third of the piece is cutaways of him looking at the damage. And it's like Lester with you know.
It's been definitely like my experience through William Paterson and this internship at News Talk New Jersey. It was definitely more production based, like working on shows specifically, like in the control room, so like writing, producing, at least here.
So what do you want to do for your first job?
I'm looking at a lot of production assistant positions, mostly within NBC because right now I have all their contacts. And what I've learned, like I've definitely gained very valuable research and news gathering skills
at the network desk, and we're getting phone calls all the time from people like all across the country, different bureaus, different reporters, or different correspondents.
I'm so stupid. Like, it should just be one
So it's
You know what I learned? I learned to write. Yeah, it's 1 through 10, and then today there's like 4 playing games. And then they had the in-season tournament. So and then they had the in-season tournament, which is 6 a.m. from 6 to 9.
Oh, of course. The more things you can put playoffs and start around round 1 and 2. You'd start to get the scripts from overseas. And you had to type them. Little telephones so you would type the words without the visuals. I know it's playoffs. It's a postseason. This isn't even grammatical, you know. It's still so you're typing the words. So the next morning, also using which is basically a repeat of that time, the previous nights.
Yeah.
So it's the piece that you typed up the day before. But you were logging in for the archive, and they only cared about series. Used to just care less. But now it's like a series. So now you're doing visuals. I don't think it's last year. It's definitely like words. And you go, oh, now it makes sense. Now I just, at least like you gave it half a phrase, but now, I don't know, like I used to love it. So for 2 years, you did that. 5 games, 7 games, words without pictures, then pictures without words. It's kind of a unique experience, but really taught you how to. That's where like the magic comes. It just feels like it's a whole series that you respond to. I like it. It was like, I appreciate that. Baseball, I'd say.
I've done a little bit on campus, at least like for players. And like I can do it, but I think I do enjoy more behind the scenes.
I know you're familiar with your work. Yeah.
Writing
I've been at this since
and then you scripts.
Like Nick, the resident.
Yeah. No problem. Well, it's a busy time for us next few weeks.
Yes, definitely.
And you have a choice between Columbia still has a name.
How do you like working with the web team?
So far.
Yeah.
Still, I guess, somewhat in training.
Okay.
For the most part, I'm starting to get the hang of it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been just over 3 months, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's efficient.
Do you
I
find
actually
that
came
it's
from a sports background.
very
so
hands-on,
nice
like,
to
are
get
those
to be a
students?
Yeah, and they know
And I
that
think we do a really good job.
Columbia
with our
tries to act
local
as
news.
if
Yeah,
they're going to teach you
definitely.
every year.
And
And
I
no,
am
they're going to teach you
originally from
the
Jersey,
scholars.
so getting familiar with the islands, the different towns.
NYU.
Starting to hang with it.
We're not
Where on the island are you
teaching
living? Or you
I'm still
First of
you're
all,
still in Jersey, so you're commuting that.
Yeah, a little, yeah, could be a little
and so
rough,
they,
but fortunately,
they give you stuff that you
hybrid
couldn't get.
schedule.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so, I only go in a few times a week, and we set it with a night shift.
And very
Just
direct
traffic along there, so.
things you could not encounter in a corporate passenger stuff.
It depends, I mean, if there's not an ounce of traffic, it'll be around an hour.
Okay, that's not.
But,
And the
you know,
forces on
rush hour
that
traffic would be anywhere from an hour to.
but these are at the lunch that will encounter.
That was basically my commute. I go from here to Bellevue.
Yeah,
So,
Are you out on
Go back to the promise.
The history.
Let's go back over here.
That's probably when eventually when I
Oh, hands up.
That's probably where so this actual
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
like my commute might even be longer.
Yeah, I know at the bar, there's our next bar, he lives in Brooklyn, and it's such a big set. We got practice facilities there, Barclays is there.
Yeah.
I think Laura Albanese lives in Astoria, so.
Yeah.
Astoria's pretty close. Pretty neighborhood.
Yeah. So a lot of Bob.
Yeah, I do know Bob.
Yeah. He was talking about a lot of the other people, I guess they are from Jersey. But then I guess they don't have any 2 days a week out. I would be able to say,
Yeah, like Popperland, kind of in South Jersey.
All right, we're going to start. So if everyone could get seated, and we'll start this next portion. Wow, very effective. All right, so thank you again, everybody, for sticking around. Again, I'm Nick Kershaw, I'm the journalism professor here at William Paterson and the advisor for our campus chapter Society of Professional Journalists. And this will be our keynote, our final event of the evening, to thank you all for joining us to celebrate the students here in our SBJ chapter for winning National Campus Chapter of the Year. As I may have mentioned before, we won this award last fall, beating 107 campus chapters across the United States, including some really big journalism programs. So we're very excited about that. And I really appreciate all of you who came here tonight to celebrate these students. If you don't know much about William Paterson, we're working class student body. 60% of our students are people of color. Many of them work part-time hours that are pretty excessive and really eat into the time that they might have for extracurricular activities. And so the fact that they actually still manage to find time to do all of the work that you're going to see a little bit of today. We'll have some videos. We'll have some students come up and tell you about the podcast that we started last year, which we're very proud of, where whenever we go to newsroom tours, we interview folks at places like CBS News, MLB Network, Bergen Record, ABC, where we were just at last week. And we put all of this together. They write scripts. They do journalism. They're not just journalism students. They're student journalists. They're actually putting this together for an audience, we hope, around the country that is going to find this. So I know you're going to hear this a few times from other people today, but in the programs that you got when you came in, there is a QR code that links directly to our WPSBJ podcast. So if you please could subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review it, because the students do a lot of work that we want to honor. But yeah, I'll just say, before I throw it to Rochelle Estrada, our president, being a part of this organization, SBJ in general, has been very meaningful for me. So any of you who are considering joining, I would say this has been, of all the organizations I've been a part of, the most rewarding in terms of the depth of the friends that I've made, the fact that so many selfless people are willing to say, sure, I'll stay late at my job to give your students a newsroom tour. I'll make sure that they can interview me for a podcast or an assignment all the time. And honestly, on a personal level, I've shared this with some of the students, but I started William Paterson in the fall of 2016, right after graduating my PhD program. And in pretty short succession, about a year and a half after that, both of my parents died very unexpectedly. And I said to some of these SBJ folks, some of the alums who are here today, and still for the folks who are here right now, is that I feel like organizations like this can carry you through some really dark times, troubling times in our lives, when you have those depth of friendships and you kind of still remember the mission that brought you to journalism, the public service part of it. And then all these events that we get to do, it feels like a kind of a second family at times of all the times we go out. I joke with some of the students that, when you're on your iPhone and it has all of the like faces that tend to be the most in your photos. And it's like the first like 5 are SBJ students and the 6th is my fiance. So it says a little something about how much time we spend together. But I think that's, it's a positive thing too of, that we do develop these hopefully lasting mentorship relationships. So thank you for being all part of that. So we're going to have Rochelle speak to you, but first we're going to play a video that shows a little bit about what we do to introduce you a little bit more to the William Patterson Society of Professional Journalists. So watch the monitor and you'll get to see. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Welcome to the celebration of William Paterson University's National Campus Chapter of the Year distinction. I'm Rochelle Estrada, and I am the president of William Paterson Society of Professional Journalists, or WPSPJ. I would like to provide some context to our selection. As Dr. Hershon just mentioned, there are a total of 108 campus chapters in the nation, counting ours. And there are schools that include Syracuse University and the University of Missouri, which are very well renowned schools and kind of considered D1 institutions. And our student body at a state school with a working class student body and limited resources was chosen out of those 107 schools to be the National Campus Chapter of the Year. And I would like to thank the Society of Professional Journalists chapter in the nation for making this happen. I want to thank 2 SPJ leaders who are celebrating with us today and were speaking to us this evening, which includes the president of SPJ's New Jersey chapter, Kenneth Burns, as well as the president of the chapter in New York City called the Deadline Club, Cesar Bustamante. I'd like to give you a sense of the many ways in which WPSPJ tries to engage student journalists at William Paterson. Since I joined WPSPJ, it's been a year and a half now, which is crazy to think about. We have organized tours of newsrooms across New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. This includes newsroom tours at 1010 Winds, CBS News, WABC Channel 7, WHYY Radio, MLB Network, the Al Jazeera Bureau at the United Nations. I'm just naming a few. Our chapter has also hosted events on campus that provided perspectives on journalists from minority communities, such as Asian Americans and people with disabilities, and also discussing how these groups are represented in the news media. Today, we're celebrating our distinction as the National Campus Chapter for the last academic year of 2022 to 2023. But I'd also like to share what we've been doing in this academic year of 2023 to 2024. We began in August, and we have been working for student journalists by setting up a booth at the Autumn Lights Festival in West Milford to promote WPSPJ. We've been organizing trips to shadow sports writers at 2 New Jersey Devils hockey games and a Seton Hall men's basketball game. And also, we arranged to meet an actor, which some of you may know, I didn't, Scott Bakula, after attending an off-Broadway production that he started about journalism. I am especially proud that WPSPJ has been igniting the fire in producing weekly episodes of the WPSPJ podcast. And I hope that all of you here tonight can take a few seconds to help support me as a young journalist and the other students who have worked really hard in putting this podcast together. I am proud to be the founder and the first ever executive producer for the WPSPJ podcast, which is the first podcast to ever be produced by an SPJ college campus chapter, in case you did not know. I started this podcast in October 2022 because I wanted to use my passion for audio reporting and storytelling to spread SPJ's mission of democracy and diversity in a way that has never been done prior. This podcast provides all reporters, but especially our audience of student journalists, insights on how to succeed in the profession of journalism. Our podcast features interviews from some of the top outlets in the country, which includes the New York Times, the Washington Post, ESPN, CBS, and MSNBC. Putting together this podcast takes many hours of work every week, from arranging interviews to writing scripts to recording, editing, publishing, and promoting on social media. And yet, many journalists and members of our William Paterson community don't even know about that yet. But let's change that tonight. If you have not yet subscribed to the WPSPJ podcast, I ask you to take out your phones right now and find us on Apple Podcasts. You can also use the QR code on the programs you received when you entered. I'm also asking you guys, please take out your phones. I'm going to give you guys a minute. And while you guys do that, we have recently just released 4 episodes within the month of April. And to give you guys headlines on what those new episodes include, we had an interview with actor Scott Bakula when we went to go see the production that is actually called The Connector on Broadway. So we did an interview with him, so check it out. We also spoke with MLB Network supervising producer Haley Costello. We also spoke with sports writers Jim Cerny and Dennis Gorman. And we have many more episodes that have been the case since February 2023. And some of you guys have been featured in those episodes. So definitely give it a look in your own time. Leave a comment. Give us as many stars as you want. I know there's 5, but you can always give more than 5 or get someone to put 5. We'll appreciate it. But with all that being said, thank you for subscribing and supporting student journalism. WPSPJ has made the last 2 years of my college education years to remember. I have made professional connections that have inspired me to continue my path as a female Hispanic journalist. I was fortunate to secure an internship through WPSPJ as a journalism writer and editor. And I have discussed WPSPJ in professional podcasts, newspaper articles, and even television newscasts. Through WPSPJ, I was able to attend the radio station of my dreams, which is 1010 Wins, and I represented the chapter by appearing on Univision in November of 2023. To say the least, My experiences in WPSPJ are absolutely unforgettable. I am thankful to our advisor, Dr. Nicholas Hirschon, for always believing in me and giving me everything that I could ever have. I thank my WPSPJ members standing and sitting right in front of me for working alongside me and building this chapter to its success, because I could not have been able to do this without each and any of you. I'll get sentimental, so I'm going to stop. But most especially, I thank you all for being here, and for some of you that are coming from many, many miles away and having to go through many bridges and tunnels from New York City, because that's not fun, to be here tonight. Thank you for taking the time to celebrate this moment with us. We will now be moving forward to our next part, where we will first watch a video showing all of you our experiences shadowing sports writers from the Presidential Center in Newark for a Seton Hall basketball game to the UBS Arena on Long Island for a professional women's hockey game. With all that being said, thank you again, everyone.
Getting the word out and you're seeing how great the product is. I mean, if you can get that word out, then people will get excited about it, and we'll have something we can all be proud of, and it will be sustainable through the next 106 years, which I think is how old the NHL is.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry Capola. I am a junior here at William Paterson, as well as the treasurer of WPSPJ. I just want to say thank you all so much for coming out tonight. So to start, although my time here at William Paterson has been quite short, I've experienced more than I could have ever hoped for. I really did not know what to expect when coming to William Paterson, and I've gotten so much more than I ever expected, like I said. After I graduated community college with my associates in journalism, I wasn't really sure where I would be going after that, really. But I actually ended up discovering WPSPJ through Dr. Hirschon's Intro to Podcasting class. And I thought it would be pretty silly of me not to join and to work alongside Dr. Hirschon and all the other amazing members of WPSPJ. And as someone who is interested in audio and radio production, I was super intrigued when I heard about the WPSPJ podcast. As something, that is something very interesting to me, and I love working with audio and stuff. So like I said, I was very intrigued by it. I started off just kind of helping out here and there and editing some of the podcasts, and, eventually I found myself being the co-executive producer alongside Tommy Sherwood. And this opportunity has really helped me to explore so much more of the journalism and media side of everything. And the process of it all, especially when it comes to podcasting. The WPSBJ podcast has connected me to so many folks in the journalism and media world, and through tours at places like CBS News, News 12, and WABC 7. CBS was personally one of my favorites, as I had an opportunity to record interviews with executive producers, broadcasters, and the managers of social media there at CBS. And putting together this episode was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. It was so much fun, and it was, like I said, something like I had never experienced before. Our podcast really offers a lot of really fantastic advice and words of encouragement from real-life folks who are in all different parts of the field. I encourage not only journalists who are already in the field, but also student journalists to check out our podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. Thank you so much for everyone for coming out tonight to celebrate our awesome chapter. Next, we'll be presenting a video that will provide some insight on all of the awesome campus tours and events. So, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Tommy Sherwood. I am the executive producer of our WPSPJ podcast, as well as the publicity chair for our SPJ chapter, and I will be the future president of the club next year. It is an absolute honor to be speaking with all of you tonight. And it is an even bigger honor to be a part of such a great SPJ chapter led by our advisor, Nick Hirshon. WPSPJ has meant the world to me since I joined the chapter, when I was also in the introduction to podcasting class. When I took over as executive producer, I did not know the first thing about audio production, editing, honestly, even how to conduct an interview properly. But I don't like saying it like this, but being thrown in the fire was just what I needed to learn what it took to be a great journalist. And without that, I would not be the man you see standing up here today. I aspire to be a sports journalist one day, covering football. My passion for sports lies when I was in fourth grade, when I would watch sports with my grandfather, who was battling through cancer. Him and I would frequently talk about sports all the time. We'd watch the Yankee game, we'd watch the Giants game, and we just had a great time together. And that led me to start playing football, where I felt his presence the most. When I started playing in college, I realized that I needed to evolve myself, as, let's face it, I'm not making it to the NFL. So I decided to rely on a backup plan, which is something my grandmother always told me. Have a backup plan. So I decided to focus strictly on journalism. I also want to talk about my favorite event that we've hosted at SPJ, which is shadowing freelance sports reporter Dennis Gorman, who is here tonight, at a professional women's hockey game at UBS Arena on Long Island. Not only was his experience a blast, but it also pushed me out of my comfort zone, with it being my first time ever driving over the George Washington Bridge headed into New York City. I got to sit next to a veteran sports writer, Dennis Gorman, at this hockey game to watch what a professional in the field of my dreams did every single day. And I got to ask him, along with longtime sports journalist Jim Cerny, as well as having the first time where I ever had an interview with a professional coach. With all that being said, I would like to introduce to you all tonight's keynote speaker, Darla Miles, that will speak to all of you. Mrs. Miles is an Emmy award-winning reporter that works for WABC. She has been in the industry since 1994 and first starting out as a creative services producer for CNN, working all the way up to being a news reporter for WABC, where she has been since 2009. Everyone, Darla Miles.
Nick, do I go here or sit down? Right here. I'll go grab my water. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you all for staying late and being so dedicated to your craft and to this chapter and to hear what I have to say. I would like to congratulate everyone who's here, and not just for becoming the SBJ Society of Professional Journalists Chapter of the Year, but just for putting on such an amazing program, for the pride in that you're taking and the work that you're doing. And I'm just really honored and thrilled to be a part of it. The pleasure is truly, truly mine. Pulling out my notes and my glasses. A little drink of water. And Nick, thanks again for inviting me to be a part of it. So here I am this evening at William Paterson University with the Society of Professional Journalists, right? Rachel told us you beat out 107 other chapters for Chapter of the Year. And so I was reflecting on why William Paterson beat out the rest. And I was asked to speak about that. So I've been thinking about it. Almost 30 years in journalism. I've worked across the country, local news, national news, international news. And, you know, I was ushered in the digital revolution with the internet, social media, all of those things. And I said, why? William Paterson University in Wayne, New Jersey? They're so proud, they're so passionate. Of course, I didn't doubt it at all, but I was like, what is it about this particular program, this particular chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists that rose to the top? Because they say cream always rises to the top. So I was asking Nick about it the other day, and I said, why do you think you won? And he said, well, we have a podcast. We have a new podcast. It's great. Listen to our podcast. I listened to the podcast. I was in the podcast studio with Thomas. Who here works on the podcast? All right, we have a great group of people on the podcast. It is an amazing production. And I said, was it the podcast that put them over the top nationally with the Society of Professional Journalists? That's not it. Then I said, let me look at other things. Let me look at their television studio. It's really state of the art. It is really better than the very first newsroom I worked in Augusta, Georgia. It has so many bells and whistles. This school has more than my first station in Augusta, Georgia in 2001. My local TV station, WJBF News Channel 6, home of the Masters. We just had the Masters last week. And I said, maybe let me look at the and I did my research because I am a journalist. I said, let me look at their newscast. Beautiful studio, production, class act, the graphics package, the studio lighting, the presentation, the delivery. I'm like, this is broadcast worthy. It could be on just as easily as News 12 or not Channel 7, but other stations. And I was like, well, is it the news? Is it the newscast that made them number one? Who works on the newscast here? Anybody in the TV studio, broadcast journalists? Okay. It's not that either. Okay, so then I asked Nick, I said, what he told me about the Beacon, reviving the Beacon and the digital archive. And I looked at some of the stories and I was like, okay, this is great. You know, not only did they introduce new programming with the podcast, they're resurrecting old programming. That is a heavy lift. So you have a TV station, you have a newspaper, and you have a podcast. That is a heavy, heavy lift. I know how much content there is to produce and how much work that is. Who works on the digital archive or the Beacon? Who is part of that here? Don't, because you know what I'm going to say, so still hold your hand up. It's not that either. That is not why you all won Chapter of the Year. And I'm going to tell you why. Those are mediums. That's the vehicle. You're the voice. It's the content that you're putting out on all of these mediums that has really elevated you to the top. It's the fact that you bring your A game and your passion every single day and you put it into these mediums. That is why you're number one. That is what makes any winning team number one. Maybe not the Dallas Cowboys, but the Philadelphia Eagles. You bring your A game every single day, and that's why you're winning the game. I actually was not very familiar with the Society of Professional Journalists, so I went to look them up. And they have a code of ethics, which one of the main tenets is seek truth and report it. And that is what you're doing every day. The fearlessness with which you are seeking information about your craft and your career. You are undaunted. Rachel had this impressive list of everywhere you've been. Is Rachel right? Rochelle. That's why you're looking at me crazy, like my name's Rochelle. Sorry. Rochelle, and I did see your testimonial online, so I already knew you before I even got here. But you're so undaunted, and fearless, and that is what really takes to be a journalist. You're not putting yourself out front. You're putting the content and your love for the information gathering, the observation, the information sharing, the interpretation of information. That is the love that you're putting into the medium, to the podcast, to the Beacon, to the television station. That is what makes you amazing budding journalist. So they have this code of ethics, and I was again looking at the code of ethics, and I'm looking at all of your storytelling. And I was like, they've got some good storytelling. I thought the food truck story was amazing. Why do you think the food truck story is amazing? Does anybody know why that was an important story to this campus? Does anybody know? Don't raise your hand. I know you don't want to raise your hands with me again, right? Because it affects the daily lives of people on this campus. This is a working campus. You're hungry. You're moving in and out, just like Nick mentioned. It's a food truck, but it's sustenance. It's food. It's something that people will want to know. That's the thing about the news. Everybody may not want to know what you're reporting on, but there's somebody it's very important to, and that's who you're speaking to. I thought the mystery cat was great too. It's a talker. It's a great story. One of the best stories that I like to have covered at Channel 7 is the pizza rat. Everybody loves stories about pets. They're always the most memorable story. Anything about a cat, a dog, a pet. It's a memorable story. It's that storytelling that makes you stand out. It's the fact that you bring your A game every day is what makes you stand out. The range of topics, very impressive. Thomas mentioned sports. You're talking to local news leaders, national news leaders, international news leaders. You are seeking information about your craft, about your passion, about your love, about your purpose from people who can help you advance it. For example, has anybody baked a cake? Even a box cake? The box cake should be easy, right? You've got 2 eggs and the water, and then you put it in the oven, and you got to put the pan, but then there's some nuances to it, right? Depending on the elevation, you need to use this temperature. Well, an 8-inch round pan might be better than a rectangular pan. So there are nuances to making the cake, but if you want to bake a cake, you need the right ingredients, and you want to know how to mix those ingredients to make the best cake that you can. And so that is what you've been doing. You've been finding all of the right ingredients to make that perfect cake. And that is what's important. Diversity matters. I was asked when I arrived for one of the publications that you're doing, because I got, okay, just talk here. Yeah, I did a couple of interviews. And I was asked what's important about me talking to you. You are the future. You are I love ushering in the next generation of journalists. Just like Bill Belichick, he's got a lot of knowledge to pass down. Aaron Rodgers, he may not have been able to play for the Jets, but he's passing that body of knowledge down. And that's what we need as veteran journalists, because we are the purveyors and protectors of democracy in this country. You may have a lot of different outlets, lots of different opinions, but it's up to us to make people know why we're important. And that's what you're doing in the way you're collecting information. It says, the Code of Ethics says you have to be courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information. You're showing that. You have developed an amazing culture of professional development and growth. I believe when I looked at Rochelle's video, I looked at everybody's video on the homepage, and I really wanted to know why this was important and why you were passionate about it. And what I learned, which was the common denominator, is that you're putting the craft first. You're putting the information first. You're putting the product first. It's not going to work if you just want to be on TV or want to be famous. Let's look at Caitlin Clark. You do what you love. She's a women's basketball player. She's famous because she exhibits excellence every day. It's about the excellence with which you are doing your reporting, your podcast, your TV station. That is why you should give yourselves a round of applause. And I'm going to wake you up. I know it's late, so I'm not going to go very, very long. So I think you're the chapter of the year, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Because being a journalist is not about what you do. Any profession should not be about what you do. It's about who you are. It's about your integrity. It's about your character. It's about knowing the difference between right and wrong. It's about standing up for what's right and what's wrong. And that is what I see you all becoming really well poised to do. And I want to leave you with a challenge. Because you know what? You beat out 108 other chapters. How do you win next year? How do you win the Super Bowl next year when you've already won the Super Bowl? I'm going to challenge you to think about what it is. To me, right now, this moment in history, I actually think what we do is the most important it's been in generations. We had the Kardashian era, the infotainment era, where everything was, where social media and all of these other outlets and the digital revolution, we had all of these different constant stimulation, and TMZ just started, and so the industry was really captivated at real-time information. We were captivated. Oh my gosh, there's cell phone video. We were captivated that we were seeing things in real time. And I think in being captivated with all the technology that became available to us, we were distracted. We got a little distracted. But we're not distracted anymore. We've been able to self-correct as an industry, and you're part of that. And that's actually part of growth, to self-correct and to move forward. And so I do see you as the future of this industry. I can tell you I've not spoken to a class of journalists in recent memory that are this impassioned. First of all, everybody's smiling. You're not stressed out. And you're having fun. And that is what it's about. Thomas asked me earlier, I forgot what the question was, but you were like, what's the most important thing I should know? You should have fun. You're doing a term paper every day. You're becoming an expert in a new subject every single day. I can't tell you how amazing it is to meet new people, to go to new places, go to places no one else has ever been. And then, to Rochelle's point, bring it back and let people know, oh my gosh, this is amazing. To broaden someone's spectrum, their scope, their horizons. That is what you all have been doing. That is why you are Chapter of the Year, because of the content, because of the passion, because you can see that in your product. You can see that in the speeches that you've given. I could see that in the video presentations. But you got to push forward. Because guess what? You're only as good as your last game. You know, Masters, a lot of people didn't make Tiger made the cut, but he didn't win, right? So you're only as good as your last game. You're only as good as your last story. You're only as good as your last story. So maybe in football you may run for 100 yards, but then the next one you have 3 interceptions. No one's going to remember the 100 yards. They're going to remember the interceptions. So continue to bring your A game every day. Continue to bring your enthusiasm and do it for the right reason. And it doesn't, and just stay out of your head. You know, sometimes you're in your head and we've got to plan everything out. Be in the present because it's a present. It's a present. News, I always say, what is the root word of news? It's new. They don't call it olds, they call it news. So continue to push forward, to be fresh. I would challenge you not to expand your mediums, but to find new ways of content to connect with your audience. Who is your audience and what are you talking about? And why is it important to them? Like the cat that we see every day, whose cat is that, right? Oh, did you know about the new food truck? Because I don't have time to go back and I've got to go to work, But I think the biggest thing that is important about this chapter and this campus is the diversity. I learned a long time ago that a newsroom and a news organization should mirror the community that it serves. So if you're in a predominantly Asian community, then you should have that same percentage of Asian representation. If you are in a predominantly Indian community, you should have representation. And the diversity that I see in this room, it is like the different ingredients of the cake. Everybody brings a different perspective, a different flavor to the cake, but it's all important to the recipe. So you're all bringing that diversity to your coverage, which is what makes you stand out as Chapter of the Year. And I was like, should I go back and even look at those other chapters to see what they submitted? I really don't care. I don't care, no one, do we even know who the Eagles played in the Super Bowl? We don't remember them. We just know the Eagles won, right? And I personally bring the Super Bowl analogy to my reporting every day. Every day is a Super Bowl. You have a time limit to get it on the air. And when the clock is out, the clock is out. You have no more time. And you have to do the best, outrun, outcatch, outthrow in that time limit. You all are in a very unique season of your life, being here on campus, having the state-of-the-art amenities that you have. Be a sponge. Continue to be a sponge. You learn everything that you can so that you can feed yourself and not live in your mom's house when you graduate, if you do. I guess that wasn't funny. Different as a generational thing. But I'm just impressed by the passion, by the dedication. That is what has made this chapter rise to the top. It's because of who you are and how you do it. And you bring your A game every day, and you're doing it for the right reasons, in service. And this is a public service that we're doing. We have a covenant with the public, and they trust us and they expect us to, they hold us in high regard. Like, it's like your doctor. Like, when you put me under, I'm going to make sure you're going to bring me back, right? So what we do, don't let anyone tell you what we do is not important. Don't let anybody tell you we're fake news. Don't let anybody tell you it's all biased. There's something wrong with it. It was, you know what I say? I said, well, really, you think it's all biased? Well, what news station do you watch? What was the last story that you saw? Take your passion, be the stewards of this industry, to let people know and understand why we are important, why what we do is important. And you're already doing that. I applaud you. I congratulate you. And you're embodying the code of ethics as outlined by the SPJ. Accurate, fair, honest. Courageous is really the word that I feel really represents, embodies this particular chapter. You're amazing. You're amazing because it's 9:37 and you're still listening. You're amazing because you laughed at some of my jokes. Be proud of what you did, proud of who you are, but guess what? Now it's a new game. Football, 2023-2024 football season is over. We're in a new season. Nobody cares about your yards. Nobody cares about who won the Super Bowl. Win the Super Bowl this year. What are you going to do that? Elevate your content. Elevate your storytelling. Elevate your writing. You have reinstated these amazing mediums. Now you have these platforms. Make people know why. Use that passion and the observation and the interpretation to make yourself an appointment. I'm going to catch this podcast because of, not because, well, I got to watch this podcast. Like, make it everything that you can't envision that it is. It's the NFL. It's the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl every day. You've been bringing your A game every day. You are chapter of the year, and I look forward to coming back next year when you're chapter of the year again. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Thank you again.
So thank you so much, Darla, for that thoughtful speech and for doing all of that research on us. Thank you again for all of you for coming out tonight. It really means a lot that you spent so much time either trekking here from places far away and then also just sticking with us through all this. I should have mentioned this before, remiss just to say, proud parent moment here for all of these folks who are here at our chapter. But Rochelle recently won a scholarship from the Deadline Club, $2,500. So, yeah. So Rochelle is the only undergraduate to win a Deadline Club scholarship this year. So from all of New York City, all of the great schools, NYU, Columbia, all these CUNY programs, Rochelle is the only one. And she joins other people who are the only other scholarship recipients this year are NYU and Columbia and William Paterson. So yeah, hopefully that says something about us. Thank you. But just to all of the folks who were involved in the chapter, thank you so much for all the words you've said today. Thanks for all your hard work. And I'm looking forward to working with you together, and we'll have to bring you back next year, Darla. We're going to keep you to that if we can attain that height again. But thanks to all my friends who are here, all the students. We appreciate you coming out. Get home safe. There's still food outside, so hopefully you can grab some stuff. Oh, yeah. Are you looking for... Oh, okay. So, if there's people want to come up and we'll do a group photo, that'd be a great idea. Thank you, Sonia. Great idea. So, anybody, so Ken, Cesar, all the students, all the journalists, everybody, let's come up here and we'll get a nice photograph. We have our logo back here. We have the logo there. We have the logo on this tabletop here. We're just getting in front of this. Want to move the chairs away or something?